I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and it's part 2 of the review of the Motorola Atrix HD on AT&T. So we're back in part 2 of the Motorola Atrix HD full video review, but before I jump into the technicalities and logistics of the device, some love to my boys at Best Buy Mobile because they hook us up with phones like this that we give to you in the One Paw Bandit giveaway game on the site. When you go into Best Buy Mobile, you don't have to deal with rebates, waiting 8 to 10 weeks to get debit cards, dealing with messy paperwork. At Best Buy Mobile, you'll walk out, and not only will they help you set everything up, but you're not going to deal with any mail-in rebates. So this is the Motorola Atrix HD, and if you're coming into this, I'd advise watching part 1, but if you're coming into part 2, just to give you a recap, 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 processor, a really well-equipped device with a 4.5-inch HD display, an 8-megapixel camera, and Android 4.0 with Motorola's user interface, which is quickly becoming kind of stock Android. It's hard, to believe that I would say this looking back where we were 2 or 3 years ago, but this device probably has the least skinning out of any device on the market right now. It's also the first Motorola device to launch with Android 4.0, again, also known as Ice Cream Sandwich. It's available now at AT&T for $100, so $99.99 or $49.99 if you buy it right now at Best Buy Mobile. So back into this, and let's take a look at the application. So out of the gate, and I kind of mixed this up. If you're coming into part 2 and you're like, well, he doesn't usually talk about this in part 2, well, that's because I'm kind of switching some stuff around. So I'd advise you watch part 1 as well. Out of the gate, you get the typical AT&T stuff: code scanner, family map, smart Wi-Fi, navigator, device help, live TV, AT&T messages, my AT&T, quick lights, a bunch of stuff out of the gate. And if I remember right, you can't uninstall this stuff, unfortunately. Let's go in here. Actually, let's go back from that and let's see applications, apps. There we go, apps, and let's see what we've got here. Downloaded, family map. I take that back. It looks like we can't uninstall it. So AT&T's got a pretty inconsistent message going on right now with their AT&T branded applications. There are certain devices that you can't uninstall it. There are some that you can. There are some that you can disable it but not uninstall it. I'd love for them to have a consistent approach with this, but at least on the Atrix HD right now, it looks like you can uninstall some of the AT&T stuff. So just doing this as a test. If you don't want that bloatware, it looks like you can get rid of the AT&T stuff. And again, take a look at the Ice Cream Sandwich fonts, AT&T messages, and it looks like I installed the updates, but I think AT&T Navigator, it looks like it's stuck there on the device. So let's see, Navigator. Yeah, I can disable Navigator. So it looks like Atrix HD is kind of a hybrid here where I can delete some of this stuff, like, let's see, Live TV, for example, but I can't delete AT&T Navigator and some of the other AT&T applications. Like, let's say, AT&T messages, it looks like any of this stuff in the all section, it looks like I can't uninstall. So I can get rid of some of that AT&T stuff, so you have to pick and choose, unfortunately, but you can remove some of that stuff. Back to the widgets, though, and the applications. You got your widgets over here, and you can easily scroll between them by clicking or just by simply scrolling. And you've got AT&T Navigator widgets, AT&T Traffic widgets, Smart Wi-Fi, Circles, which is what I talked about in part 1. It's a new widget, a new Motorola one that comes with the Atrix HD. You're also going to see stock Google stuff like Calendar, Bookmarks, Gmail, and then this feature that I think is really cool, and I wanted to cover this in part 2. It's called Drive Smart, which apparently I already have a widget on there. It's part of Motorola's Smart Actions, and I can watch this and send, you know me, like if you watch my videos or you've heard me on Twitter or anything, or seen me type, I guess you can't really hear me on Twitter, I'm very adamantly opposed to texting while driving, and I'd like to start eventually a nonprofit about it. But you can see this. Smart Actions suggests an application called Drive Smart. When I launch it, I can say I pair my device, I use a navigation dock, or none of these apply. And I can set it up to where when I'm driving, I can activate this. And if you call me, you text message me, I can have it text you back and say, hey, I'm driving, call me in 30, or I'll touch base with you when I get wherever I'm going. It's just a really cool application. I'm so excited to see manufacturers finally jump on this. And you can, again, with Drive Smart, once it's turned on, I can auto-reply the text here. I can say a voice announce where I can announce the caller's name, and I can launch vehicle mode. So a lot of different things you can do here. Turn GPS off. You can turn the ringer volume off if you want to and change that around. And that's a pretty cool feature, and you can save that. So it's nice to see Motorola jumping on the bandwagon here and really advocating against doing anything with your phone while you're driving, because it is pretty dangerous. Let's take a look at Quadrant Standard as well. Load this up, and this device has a pretty snappy processor in it, a 1.4 or 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 CPU. So it's running the S4 CPU that all the high-end devices are running in the States. It's packing LTE, so it's got a really awesome feature set considering it's only $100. So I'll tell you a little bit about the call quality as well. Motorola does an exceptional job in the wireless radio department. When it comes to anything that Motorola does, that's probably what they do best. They're that device where, and it has been this way back to the early wireless days, where it's like, you live in a place with 1 bar service or 0 bars, and you just need that phone that you can just barely eke out signal with. Motorola has historically been great at that. It continues with the Atrix HD. I took it to dead spot, did get a little bit of choppiness, but nothing in comparison to other devices I've seen in that area in Southeast Charlotte. Very impressed with that. Battery life, relatively decent, not going to be anything amazing by any means. I'm seeing about 10 to 13 hours with moderate use, and I consider moderate use to be downloading some apps, making a few phone calls, messages, snapping a few pictures, browsing the web, and stuff like that. So again, your mileage may vary. Keep a car charger around though, or a spare charger in the office, because you can't just swap out the battery, because unfortunately it is non-removable. The good thing about that, you don't deal with flimsy battery covers. The bad thing about that, you do have to keep charging it or make sure you're constantly charged. 5,024 on quadrant standard, so a very impressive speed for the Atrix HD. 5,024, take it with a grain of salt. It's not indicative of day-to-day performance, but I will say it's been very, very impressive all throughout my testing. It's one of those devices where I'm kind of like, you don't want to spend $200. This is going to be an awesome device for $100. Really killer specs, and it's nice to see that they've jumped on the bandwagon of S4 CPUs and ice cream sandwich, and hey, a clear, non-skinned, or at least relatively thin-skinned, no pun intended, stock user interface. So let's take a look here. I'm going to bring over Xperia Ion just for a sample here. 8 megapixel camera, 1080p HD video recording. I wanted to focus on that Xperia logo. Let's see what we can do here. Did not intend to make it flash. Let's see what we can do here as well with some text. I'm going to bring over this Galaxy S3 prompt here so we can see what it looks like. Just to see what's in text. Let's do some up close stuff here. And so it's a pretty decent camera, 8 megapixel camera. Not as amazing by any means as the 1X or the 1 series or the Galaxy S3, but still, it takes text pretty decently. It's got some decent editing options, which we'll go back and show you in just a second. But pinch to zoom, very responsive. And again, take a look. A relatively stock look and feel up here. I think the biggest thing for a lot of people that I've heard, and this granted is phone nerds, I don't think the mainstream consumer, in fact I know working in wireless for years, the mainstream consumer could care less about logos, but unfortunately a lot of people in the industry are like, why did AT&T just do the globe without at least writing AT&T, or that looks ugly. So that's the thing I've heard the most. And then again, pinch to zoom, relatively responsive here with little to no lag. So we're going to go back in the camera here and show you, I can flip it around, I can do my video camera pretty easily, and then in here I can do widescreen, and I can change around some settings and more to customize the camera to how I want it to work. So all in all, relatively decent camera, and then of course you have the front-facing shooter as well. Let's take a look at speed test. AT&T's 4G LTE been relatively decent in the Charlotte area. Now I haven't seen speeds as crazy as some of these New York speeds or the Chicago speeds that my colleagues are reporting, but still relatively decent. I'm seeing speeds between like 4 to maybe 9 megabits per second on the upload, between like 1.5 and maybe 4. So nothing amazing. And take a look at results here. For example, 13 is about as high as I've seen. These are on Charlotte, 7 megabits per second. This one was uptown in the office. Actually, all of these were in the office. 4.55 megabits per second. And then we'll begin the test to see what we can do on camera. Who knows, the Atrix HD may be a little bit camera shy, may have some trouble, but it looks like a relatively decent score here. About 10 megabits per second on the download, and on the upload, I'm guessing somewhere between 2 and 3 megabits per second. Let's see if I'm right. So that's actually one of the more impressive speeds. That's actually, in all honesty, that's the fastest AT&T LTE speed I've seen in the Charlotte Metro. We just don't get those 30, 40, 50 megabit per second speeds that you see again in New York or Chicago. Our market's been kind of saturated for whatever reason. Wireless appears to be an issue. Every network technician I talk to says Charlotte's a really interesting market, and I'm like, well, why is it interesting? And they're like, it just is. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's kind of like that, when you were young and it's like your mom says not to do something, you're like, why? And she's like, because I said so. And you're like, oh, well, can you not give me reasoning? One of those kind of questioning things, but I'm assuming it's a terrain issue. 14 megabits per second on the download, 5 on the upload. So all in all, you can't go wrong with the Atrix HD in terms of cost. And you look at the Lumia 900, also a great budget high-end handset, just dropped to $50. So even that to me is pressure from AT&T and pressure from Nokia to compete with a device like the Atrix HD. You get access to Google Play, so you get access to hundreds of thousands of applications via the Play Store, and then you get stuff like apps, movies, music, and more through here, and now magazines as well since it's rolling out. So, and you get it all in ice cream sandwich with a relatively stock feel that doesn't feel like a Motorola device, at least how Motorola devices were 3 years ago. If you didn't like Motorola because of Moto Blur or whatever it was with the interface, throw your opinions out and take a look at the Atrix HD, because at $100, it could be one of the best Android smartphones on the market, at least when it comes to best bang for the buck. Keep it locked on the site for continuing coverage of the Motorola Atrix HD. All in all, a handset that I'd strongly recommend. Brings a lot of speed to that $99.99 price point. So be sure to take a look at it in AT&T stores if you're eligible for an upgrade, or if you just want a phone to take a look at. Very impressed with this device. Keep it locked on PhoneDog.com for continuing coverage. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Facebook.com/PhoneDog. And let's keep this conversation going. Hit me up on Twitter, PhoneDog_Aaron. Let me know what you think of the Atrix HD. You got it, you didn't like it, maybe you got it and traded it for something else, or you got it and loved it, you think it's the best smartphone ever. Let me know. PhoneDog_Aaron on Twitter and on Facebook at Facebook.com/PhoneDogAB. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to vote in our official smartphone rankings at PhoneDog.com/rankings, and your phone could be on the top. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.